What's up, everybody? It is your girl, Jab Queen Boxing, and today is Thursday. So, you know what that means. It is Throwback Thursday, baby. Boxing style. Better yet, Jab Queen Boxing style. And today we are featuring none other than Thomas, the Motor City Cobra, more commonly known as the Hitman Hearns, baby. Thomas Hearns boxed from 1977 to 2006 in an orthodox stance for a total of 67 fights, 61 wins, 5 losses, and 1 draw. 48 of those wins came by way of knockout, okay? This man fought in 5, count them, 5 weight classes: welterweight, lightweight, middleweight, superweight, and light heavyweight. Okay, he was the original first multi-weight king. All right, fighting from 147 to 175 and made a habit of going up and down in the weights. Man, he was a bad boy. Some of his most notable fights, however, were with guys like Jose Cuevas, Sugar Ray Leonard, Marvin Hagler, Roberto Duran. I mean, he got in there with pretty much everybody. And we're going to get into that right now. To kick off his career, he started with a banger, a first round knockout against Jerome Hill. He then went on to fight guys like Tony Licata, Eddie Gazzo, and Harold Weston. Now, this was in the beginning of his career, and then he slowly started to rise in the 80s, right? So, to kick off the 80s, he started with Pepino Cuevas. Okay, now Cuevas was the reigning WBA welterweight champion, and he was defending his title for the 12th time. So, he was up in there like, ain't no way this man about to beat me. Well, child, I gotta tell you, Hearns whooped that head for as long as it lasted. TKO in the second round. Now, with that height and that reach Hearns had, he was able to land a plethora of punches. Okay? I think he landed right in the second round, knocking Cuevas down and out. This was one of his most notable, devastating knockouts and considered one of the highlights of his career. Next up for the squabble was Sugar Ray Leonard in 1981. Now, this fight was called the Showdown, and it was highly anticipated too, and it lived up to every bit of its anticipation. So for the earlier parts of the fight, it seemed like, Hearns, he was getting the best of the situation. He is known for that powerful jab and his reach advantage. So he pretty much controlled the fight early on, building, a pretty good lead on, the scorecards. But come that sixth round, man, Leonard hurt Hearns with a left hook, which, obviously shifted the momentum some. They were thrilling rounds, though. I mean, they were all filled with action as both of them, man, they was in there. They some dogs, so they was in there trading heavy blows. I think Leonard's eye was swollen, you know what I'm saying, from that stiff jab, but ultimately, in the 14th round, Leonard ended up putting Hearns down and handing him his first professional loss. Now, this was for the WBC and WBA welterweight unification titles, and obviously, Sugar Ray Leonard was able to retain those titles. This, again, was their first fight because they fought twice. Now, back in the days, it isn't really like it is today. Fighters back then really didn't put too much stock in taking losses. They just avenged them. You know what I mean? Whether it be with the previous opponent, which a lot of the times they did, or they just took it out on everybody else moving forward. Which brings us to our next opponent, who is Wilfred Benitez. Now, Hearns whooped him for a majority decision, right, to win I think it was the WBC super welterweight belt. Now, although Hearns was known for his power, surprisingly, he just outboxed Benitez. Now, I believe towards the back end of the fight, I believe the eighth round, he hurt like his right hand or something like that. Now, it forced him to rely on that jab to win. Even with the hand injury, like I said, he pulled out that victory and the championship. Next up for the smoke is Roberto Duran, baby, in 1984. Now, this was Hearns' defense for his WBC and the ring super welterweight titles. He ended up winning by second round knockout. Now, this fight was nicknamed the Malice at the Palace, baby. Duran was knocked down twice in the first round and then knocked out cold in the second. Now, this was Hands of Stone's very first KO loss in his career. Okay, so you know he ain't in there with no chumps. Hearns used his height and that reach advantage to control the fight with that jab, okay, and that right hand. Now, full disclosure, they did say that Duran had to move down in weight to 154 to fight Hearn, right? Um, this was a showcase of Hearn's power and Duran's, vulnerability at that point in his career. But he kept them damn titles. Yes, he did. Now, this next fight in 1985 with Marvin Hagler, oof, this was another highly anticipated fight. It was intense, honey, but short. Now, this was for the undisputed middleweight championship. This fight was coined the war. Okay. Now, this fight only lasted about three damn rounds. And unfortunately, Marvin Hagler won by TKO. Hearns was just unable to continue. Now, the first round was brutal. Okay, they was in there putting head, shoulders, knees, and toes on each other. Okay, landing powerful blows, suffering cuts, honey. They went at it. I think Hearns broke his right hand in the first round. It got Fight of the Year by the Ring Magazine. Was also named Round of the Year. It was just chaotic, man. Just a barrage of exchanging punches. They both landed really significant blows. Hearn, he stunned Hagler with an uppercut. You know, Hagler, he he cut that eye. You know, I don't know. Hearns, like I say, he hurt his right hand. It was just a display of raw power and aggression, man, from both fighters. Okay. The second round, Hearn's legs started looking shakily. Hagler just, he applied that pressure, man, working Hearns to the body. Ugh, man. Hagler knocked Hearns down in third round with I think it was a right hook. Hearns, I mean, he couldn't recover. This resulted in a TKO victory for Hagler. I mean, Hearns was physically hurt. You know what I mean? But again, when you in there and you a dog and you in there with another dog, sometimes you just gotta lay it all on the line. But again, when you got all these titles, you have to defend them. You know what I mean? So next up, we had Dennis Andreas. Now, this fight took place in 1987. It was for the WBC light heavyweight title. Okay, you know, Hearns knocked Andreas down multiple times, including four times in the sixth round. Now, Andreas also slipped during this fight, okay? But Hearns, he landed some strong right hands that led to a knockdown, and The fight was ultimately stopped. I think it was a TKO in the 10th round due to Andrea's just pure exhaustion, you know. But this marked, Hearn's third world title in a different weight division. This made him a three division world champion after this fight. After Andreas, he fought Roldan in 1987. Now, Hearns won by KO in the fourth round. This won him the vacant WBC middleweight title, making him the first boxer to win titles in four weight divisions. Okay. Then he went on to fight Iran Barkley in what was called the ring upset of the year. Now, in this fight, well, their first fight, because they fought multiple times too, Barkley actually upset Hearns. He knocked him out in the third round, winning the WBC middleweight title. Now, this second fight was more close. It was the split decision victory for Barkley. But the second fight was a more back and forth affair. Both fighters showed considerable damage by the end of that fight. But in true warrior fashion, Hearns got his butt back in that ring, and in the end of 1988, he went against James Kitchens. Now, Hearns won by majority decision, claiming the WBO super middleweight title. This made him the first boxer to win titles in five weight divisions. Now, remember I told y'all about that first fight between Sugar Ray Leonard and Thomas Hearns? Well, baby, they back at it in 1989 for the rematch. Now, they named this rematch The War. Hearns started strong, baby, controlling the pace, even dropped Leonard in the third round. Leonard, in the fifth round, had a strong showing in the sixth round through the ninth. But in the championships round, his corner, well, they told him, he was blowing it. Hearns also had some success, including another knockdown in round 11. The fight went to full 12, and the judges, well, they scored it a draw. Two judges had it 113 to 112 for either Leonard or Hearns. And one judge, well, 112 to 112, a draw. This obviously sparked some controversy. The crowd was booing, child. They felt Hearns did enough to win. You know, some ringside supporters, they also fought to fight for Hearns, but the judges had the final say. After that, he had a few more title defenses. He fought guys like Michael Olajad, Kemper Morton, Ken Atkins, Virgil Hill. He fought him, claiming the WBA light heavyweight title. And then in 1992, it was the rematch, baby, for Iran Barkley and Thomas the Hitman Hearns. The second fight, similar to the first fight, Iran Barkley actually defeated Thomas Hearns. This was by a split decision in 12 rounds, right? The judges had it 115-113 for Barkley, 114-113 for Barkley, and one had it 114-113 for Hearns. Barkley actually scored the one and only knockdown of the fight. He sent Hearns to the canvas in the fourth round with, I think it was a left hook. The knockdown pretty much made the difference in scoring. He went on fighting, winning the majority of his fights until 2000, when he went up against Iran Grant. Hearns retired in the corner in the second round, losing his IBO Cruiserweight title. 2005, he went up against John Long and he won TKO in the ninth round. His last and final fight was versus Shannon Langberg. He also won this by TKO in the 10th round. Then he retired. But before we get into the retirement, let's take a look at some of the time he spent in that ring, giving us dominant performance after performance. Well, I don't know about y'all, but I ain't getting in there with him. After 2006, Tommy Hearns retired. Um, Unfortunately, he ran into some financial difficulties. He had to put some things up for auction, including some of his championship memorabilia. However, he came out on the other side of it. He additionally served as a reserve police officer in Detroit, where he's from. Him, in company with his mother, started the Hearns Entertainment. Um, his son, I think it was Ronald Hearns, he's a boxer. Tommy the Hitman Hearns is very involved in his fights, including, some of the undercards on his own. I know in 2012 he was inducted into the Hall of Fame as well. So he remains extremely active in his community, dedicating his time to charity work. And, from time to time, he'll appear on the Detroit sports scene. um, his entertainment company, Hearns Entertainment, they actually promoted the Mike Tyson Andre Gallardo fight back in the day. So, he's still a part of the game. He's just no longer in the ring. I do know as of recently he had to have hip replacement surgery. However, that surgery went well, and he is recovering in physical therapy. So, I guess the old adage is right. Once a fighter, always a fighter. Well, guys, that concludes this week's Throwback Thursday. I will be live tonight. Again, I will post on my community page for time because I do have an appointment at 5:30. Shouldn't be no longer than about 6:30, but I will let you all know for sure. Until next time, y'all know what to do. Catch me on a panel, baby.